So, chicken broth part 2. I'm going to go ahead and just strain this and show you kind of my practices on how I do this and keep everything safe and clean. So, the things that you're going to need are the jars that you're going to be using to store the broth, clean lids, hopefully. Usually when I make them for people, I use new lids. A ladle and a Pyrex that's easy to pour, or some kind of glass pouring pitcher that's easy. I think you can already see my ladle. Well, maybe not. There it is. And I like something for it to rest on. I like things to be clean and sanitary. And then obviously we have our broth, which is still hot. I just took it off the stove. And that's the way you want to drain it, because it will gel a little bit. So I'm going to take this lid off. And our broth is done. I may move the camera to show you what it looks like. It's really beautiful and golden, and it's got, with chicken you don't get a ton of fat, but it makes the broth really rich and flavorful. So I just want to show you what that looks like. Prop that back up, and we're going to strain it, and I'm going to show you what I do here. So pull your Pyrex really close and just pour it directly into the mesh sieve there, straining anything out, any little bits, because we don't want anything, just the broth. I'm not going to strain all of this, but I'm going to give you the idea. So I like doing this in something where I don't have to hold the sieve. So this 1 quart size Pyrex works well. So, and it also, I'm putting them into 1 quart size jars. So obviously that works well. So I'm going to go ahead and pour that. And this is very hot. You need to be very careful. Touching the jars, you're not going to want to do that because it's going to be piping hot. And I can fill these pretty close to the top. I don't want to fill them all the way to the top because I don't really want, I don't know what this material is. I know it's BPA free now, but I don't really want it touching my broth because it's going to melt some, I'm assuming. So I want it just high enough where it's not going to touch that. And because I'm not freezing, this is fine. You wouldn't want to freeze in this quart jar anyway because it would break. So be really careful, get that lid on nice and tight. And half the time these will actually seal themselves because they're hot. But what you want to do for safety standards, a lot of people are making broth for people who are sick or have a low immune system. So you want to practice safety, food safety. So with that being said, when you have hot broth, you want it to be able to cool down within 2 hours and have it in the fridge within 2 hours. So what you can do is you can put it in a cold bath, not ice water. It'll break your jars. So you want to put it in very cold water, and then after about 20 minutes or so, you can add some ice if you want to. But don't put it straight into an ice bath because the jars can break. So what I would do is I'd just dip these into the sink, put them in the sink, fill the sink with cool water, and then you can add some ice after a little bit. But we want to get these cool as quick as we can without breaking them and into the fridge. So you've got that 2 hour window where you want them to be cooled down and in the fridge. Never put them in the fridge hot because that's going to raise the temperature of your fridge. Most people know these things, but I have to say it. And you want to make sure your fridge isn't hot because it's not going to bring the temperature down fast enough and you're going to get possibly bacteria growth. I highly doubt we would get bacteria growth in this scenario, even if these were left on the counter for a couple hours, because I'm using clean jars that have been sanitized, brand new lids, and I'm not leaving any room. So these will probably seal themselves up and be fine for a couple hours, but that's just food safety. So that's what we do. So instead of having you watch me fill all these jars, what I'm going to tell you is what I'm going to do is after I'm done straining all the broth, you're going to have all the bones left over. And because this is only gone for 1 day, there's still a ton of good property left in these bones that are in here. So after I strain all of this water or all this broth into my glass jars, I am going to refill this 12-gallon pot with, or 12-quart pot halfway with water. And I can give those bones another run for another 24 hours on the stove. Exactly the same protocol, but half the water. And I'm not going to add anything besides clean water. Everything else is kind of already in there. You could add a splash of apple cider vinegar, but I don't think it's something you have to do. Just water. Then you go for another 24 hours and strain it, and you will still have amazing broth the second run. So I wanted to let you know your bones aren't ready to throw away after the first run. If you have time, run them again with half the amount of water, because you will still get a lot out of those bones. So that is what I do. And this batch is probably going to gel fairly well. So if for any reason you want to be able to freeze any of these, I could go through easily 2 gallons of broth in a week. But you've got about a 9 to 10 day shelf life tops with these, because I put that little bit of salt in there, and there's ginger and turmeric in there. So if you're planning on not getting through it, you want to store some of these in glass jars that are straight walled and made for freezing, not these quart ones. So if that's the case, if you want to freeze some, put them in the freezer safe jars now, even if you're putting them in the fridge. Because what's going to happen is this is going to gel a little bit, and if you think you're going to transfer them, you're going to have to dip them in hot water and keep it from gelling, and then transfer it into a freezer safe jar. So I kind of just wanted to show you really quick how I did that. I'll show you again with the camera in my hand. So that's our sieve here and our ladle, and just going to, I know this seems so simple and it's kind of silly that I'm doing it, but people ask me pretty funny questions, so I am just showing you. If I actually had an ask question kind of area on my blog, I would never get sleep, because I'd want to answer everybody's questions, and I simply don't have time. So it's just easier to make videos and talk about even the smallest of details. So that is that. It's my little mess there. Pour slowly. And that's where we're going to fill it to. There we go. So that's part 2 of my video, straining your broth. Bye.